As a very impressionable child growing up in the late 2000s and early 2010s, watching TV was like an active war zone for my developing brain, with everything on screen fighting for my attention. We got all the leftovers of the 90s, and with it came the old way of advertising toys. Everything was perfectly designed to sell as much toys as humanly possible. While this kind of died down by the mid-2010s, the 2000s was just filled to the brim with marketing that targeted kids' interests down to a science. Cool designs, flashy colors, a catchy theme song, an absolute shitty gimmick.
I don't know what it is, but it's the coolest thing ever, and I can do it.
Seeing older kids in toy commercials, which is an actual psychological marketing tactic by the way, and usually being accompanied by an anime of the same name. And for some reason, it constantly worked. Yu-Gi-Oh!, Beyblades, Bakugan, Digimon, Pokemon, Zoids. Zoids were cool, I don't care what anyone tells me. With every new thing that we were exposed to came this sudden urge of needing it in that very moment. Otherwise, in your head, you didn't fit in with those who did have it and were having a fun time with said product. The fear of missing out. And no other place radiated that feeling like the public school system. With every passing year, it always felt like there was a new trend, a new fad on the school grounds. Because that's what they were. They were just trends, they were passing fads. And yet with each new trend and fad, people seemed to be just as passionate and genuinely enjoying their time as they were with the previous interests. Towards the end of one of these school years, Bakugan became the big thing people became fixated for at a time. Moving on from Pokemon, which was the longest lasting fad in my elementary, and a gambling problem I still suffer from time to time. But there came a problem. I didn't have any. For my entire life, I was only ever given 2 gifts throughout the year. One for my birthday, and one for Christmas. So then came a decision of a lifetime up to that point. Do I spend my one gift on the newly released clone turbo tank that's already in my hands and we're already in line to pay for? Or do I put it back and get Bakugans to play with friends because I don't want to be left out? So, I lost the red one. Everyone was into paper spinners when we got back to school. Yeah, really ruined a Tuesday, am I right? The fear of missing out is a concept as old as time itself. It can manifest itself for several different reasons, whether it be the fear of missing out on a limited food item, missing out on a limited time event, or missing out seeing Garguda singing at the Dodgers game. Funny how over here we got this goober, while New York got fucking Grimace.
The Mets, baby, love the Mets. Alright, baby, let's...
The fear of missing out, as Urban Dictionary goes on to describe it, is the state or emotional strain one takes caused by the fear of missing out. And whatever the topic of interest may be for people, the fear of missing out on it is just as real as the very thing they're excited for. But that fear is also a subjective point, as it really just boils down to a certain person's own interests. No two people will express the fear of missing out the exact same way. It's not like that one time in SpongeBob when Plankton put a bucket on everyone's head and made everyone a mindless drone. Like, I'm not saying everyone is predisposed to acting wild over the same product. It's not like that. Until it is like that. Everyone's interest varies in intensity, normally never really matching with someone else, which is why one person can feel whatever when presented the Travi Patty with a company toy, but turn around and go feral if they might end up missing out on the latest limited time event in their favorite video game. But there does exist something on this planet that no matter who you are, that unites everyone to collectively lose their fucking minds. And that's the fear of missing out on plastic collectibles.
That kids love this one.
Any collectible product has a funny way of hijacking our minds. We know that the supply of a product is made to meet a demand. The more an item sells, the more an item will be produced, ensuring to those that want one will be able to get one eventually. But not all collectibles are the same. Some always have a steady stream of products available at all times of the year to the point you start to question if anyone even buys the stuff. For some, the releases are usually the biggest, with subsequent restocks coming in limited quantities, not able to meet the demand of their fans, causing a panic every time one of them is back in stock, because the likelihood of getting one continues to shrink with every restock. Other collectibles are just as bad right out the gates, if not worse. Going with the whole limited release strategy, offering the product initially for pre-order with the rare discounted price as the incentive to pre-order, usually being done so the amount of product being made is going out to those who already order theirs, and all future stock of the product being limited and or non-existent. With every company comes a new product, with every new product comes a new craze, and with every new craze comes the vultures ready to help those who missed out on the item at an additional price, usually ranging from double to triple the initial retail price. And no other company is the fear of missing out and everything that follows more apparent than with LEGO. With every new year, every new wave, every new set, every new leak, and every new rumor, the fear of missing out on something you're interested in continues to grow more and more as time flies for a person. That feeling of wanting it immediately, a feeling that for some reason we all feel to some extent. Some feel it unconsciously, and others show it in their actions. Even if it's a set that people are not liking, there's still a sense of FOMO for the set because of one little thing, usually being the minifigs come into play. But that alone is enough motivation to try and get the set first in fear of missing out on it. LEGO, just like any other consumer product, is produced in mass quantities and sold all over the world, guaranteeing that if a kid wants a set, then there's a way for him to get it. But then problems start to arise that are usually outside of our own control. Inadequate and bad distribution for areas are usually the biggest culprits, as there's no real mandate for each store in a certain area to get the same amount of sets per wave. Sure, for the general parts, stores within a 10-mile radius of each other will get the product, but not all stores will have the same amount of product on hand for the release. Other stores may not put them on the shelves day one due to already having stock that they still cannot get rid of. And other stores just end up not getting anything at all until months later. Of course, you're going to run into your local scalpers, which accelerates the problem even further, but the thing you'll be fighting against for the most part is just bad distribution, which just furthers the FOMO as it seems like the sets are everywhere but your local store of choice. But that's just one aspect of the game. For normal people in the community, we don't really get the urge of getting a set on the day of release, because there's just no real incentive in doing so. I don't know what else to say. I'm never in the mindset of trying to get the set first because, in my opinion, there's nothing to gain from getting a set first. Do I get it early so that I could be the first in my friend group and show off something they don't have? I guess. It's really whatever, you know, it's not a race for me at the end of the day. And while yes, I'm talking for myself, I do believe there's a lot of other people who share the same belief I have. Like, I'm more than happy to just wait for a set. But the concept of waiting for a set also starts to stem its own form of FOMO in a sort of funny way. With the concept of waiting for a set comes a hint of complacency of not having it, showing to you that the world will not blow up if you did not get it day one. Having patience for a set usually pays off, as unless LEGO says otherwise, a set would have a shelf life that ranges from anything as short as 6 months to as long as 5 years. Of course, it varies from theme to theme, but on average you would have around 1 to 2 years or maybe 3 for a set to run its course. Ample time for you to just walk in and grab the set once the availability in your area actually exists, or ample time to finally save up the money to buy the set you've been waiting for. But that starts to create complacency for some individuals. Constantly seeing a set that you've been waiting for to be readily available on shelves after your initial hype for the product has died down does not fire a single neuron in that brain of yours. You'll always see it, there's no rush in getting it, and with every passing day the likelihood of that set going on sale grows higher and higher, which in a funny turn of events just prolongs the purchase of the set further and further, as now the thought of getting the set for a better discounted price starts to fill your mind. And with these already inflated prices, of course the thought of getting these sets for a steep discount sounds more enticing than getting these sets at a full price. So the passage of time continues to the point that the set is announced for retirement, which causes the last wave of FOMO for a set's life cycle, the last rush to get a set before it's gone for good. Just a little reminder, a LEGO set is produced to meet the expected demand. Of course there's a mandated amount made, but this number fluctuates between themes and sets, usually depending on the demand after the initial release of the set. If the set is successful and sells that fast, then more sets are made to meet that demand, meaning you will always constantly see a set on the shelves for their life cycle. But once they reach the end of their life cycles, a set retires. A set retiring does not mean that they are immediately pulled off shelves and the selling of it is now banned across the world overnight. But rather, as you all should know, a set retiring means that once the retirement date is given and the date has passed, that set is no longer produced by the LEGO group, and whatever remaining stock that is remaining out in the wild is all that will ever exist of the set. If you don't experience FOMO for a set when it releases, like I do, you sure as hell feel FOMO for a set once it's about to walk out the door. It's the final feeling of, oh shit, time is running out, and I still haven't bought the set yet. It's that funny saying of you don't know what you really have until it's gone. And once the door is starting to close, there's that one last rush to get the set, mimicking the rush that originally happens when the set is initially released.
I have a bomb! Evacuate the premises immediately! I have a bomb! I have a—
The fear of missing out on a set is now bordering very comical levels. Some jingle all the way type of shit, all to get the specific set before it finds itself on an eBay listing for 5 times the original price. It's funny what a trivial concept can do to a person's thought process. Regardless of reason, everyone sort of just falls into this in some way, shape, or form, every so often. But it's also important to point out that not everyone's the same, and will experience FOMO in the exact same way. Not every person on earth will equally lose their fucking minds once they hear a new set comes with the fan-beloved character, Glub Shitto, with all his Glub Shitto detailing and accessories. It's not like that, until it is. But simply saying everyone is just a blanket statement. Let's use the new ARC 170 set coming next year for example. A set a lot of people are hyped and can't wait for. But all these people don't really plan on getting this day one. This could be the case for a multitude of reasons, whether it be prior financial obligations, or the retail price just being too damn high to justify the purchase, or just not interested in getting it day one. Hell, people may not just be interested in it at all to begin with, but feel this societal pressure into getting it, whether it's influenced by those around them or those online. People can just get peer pressured into buying something they don't really want. Straw man argument, I know, but you'll be surprised. When I think FOMO affecting LEGO nerds, I see it affecting people in 2 types of ways. Or well, 2 types of people. Normal people and collectors. Listen, I know there's more to this, but for the sake of this video not taking another month to be written alone, just go with it. Normal people can mean a multitude of things. It can mean someone who buys 1 or 3 sets a year, someone who's content with a small collection, someone who just buys LEGO exclusively at their local Walmarts, with the thought of buying this shit online never occurring in their brain, someone whose only real interactions with the online community are just watching the seasonal M&R and Jang Bricks reviews whenever something releases. Point is, someone who likes the brand and likes the product, but someone who just lives a normal life, not really coming into this with any expectations of anything, but rather just having a sense of value for the price on the store shelves. With every new set and every new wave, the fear of spending heaps of money with nothing to show for it continues to grow ever so often. And in today's world, just about everything has risen exponentially compared to what they were before the invention of coughing. So the prices of these plastic commodities are always in the back of everyone's minds, especially when a licensed IP is connected to it. People have to be smart with how they spend their money.
Buy crypto, suckers!
The likelihood of buying an entire wave is basically a fever dream for many, and for those who could, start to question whether or not they should. So the best course of action is always to get the set that you yourself are most excited for, and pushing the rest to the side. But the very real possibility of that set being sold out already, or just not there to begin with, is enough driving force to make people rush out and get the set as fast as possible. You see, for normal people, there really is no race against a person in particular, but rather a race against an expiration date. A funny dragged out race between you and your wallet as you take your sweet time to purchase the LEGO set. But in a funny turn of events, the main fear that instills in the minds of normal people across the world is actually, funnily enough, not FOMO, but its sibling feeling, FOBO, the fear of a better option. Yes, that's a real thing, look it up. If you say you don't ever feel the fear of missing out on anything in life, that's okay, not everyone does, and not everyone should. But you'd be lying if you've never felt the fear of a better option. And while I'll really get into this in a bit, it's hard not to talk about this part without mentioning the fear of a better option, because it has a lot of control over our purchasing habits. No matter what you buy, you will always have a passing thought that makes you explore your other options. The passing thought that makes you question whether the thing you're buying is actually worth it or not. And when it comes to buying LEGO, the term price per piece is always spread around as a way of coping with a purchase. A formulaic way of making sense to an already stupid system. To quickly summarize, if a set comes in X amount of pieces, then it's supposed to equal Y amount in value. You get the idea. But it's very quick to see this way of valuating a set more times than not is often flawed, especially when it's in regards to a set with a licensed IP. With every different theme, there's a stark difference what an asking price can get you. It's all basically a gamble, one where you can already see just how bad you're going to lose beforehand.
I'm giving none of this to charity.
If I told you to close your eyes and envision what $100 can get you, and then I show you what it can actually get you, yeah, more times than not, you'll often leave disappointed. But that also depends in what you put value in, which leads to people trying to be smart with their money to really maximize their value. Whether it's buying multiples of cheaper sets or go all out and get that expensive set for the same price. All leading to the real enemy of all of this, which is your limited space to display the set back home. But in comparison, the FOMO a collector experiences, although on paper may be the same to that of a normal person, but for many the fear of missing out is a real fear for them. Just like normal people, collectors on its own can describe a multitude of people. But when it comes to the LEGO community, and to be more specifically the LEGO Star Wars community, there's like 2 types. Those who generally collect to collect, and content creators. A person who genuinely loves the game of collecting, no matter what, will always try to get a set. The fear of missing out doesn't really apply to him. As for this guy, there's no need to try and be the first one to get a set, they just care if they get the set at all. That's it. Of course, the goals and motives may vary from person to person. Some may want the whole line or just 1 or 2 sets, but priorities typically stay the same, as the set they're gunning for the most is usually the one that gets purchased first, and the rest come in due time. But unlike normal people who just go out to the stores and hope for the best, collectors for the most part use everything to their advantage. Online notifications to see when a set hits store shelves or finally go on sale, websites and apps that help organize their wants in their collection and tell them what store closest to them have the set in stock, keeping a firm eye on the community, seeing what's being hyped up the most by those on the computer screen, planning out and predicting what's going to sell out first and what may be an easy grab on day of release. So in other words, being terminally online. And funny enough, it does come with its benefits. Usually being first to know when sets get discounted at retailers or online websites. But it does come with its own downsides, as you're always in fear of someone beating you and buying a set first before it eventually goes out of stock. But that sense of fear, I would say, isn't comparable to that of a content creator. One is doing it to pad out their shelf space, and the other is doing it as if their livelihood depends on it. The content creators is everything we've talked about up to this point, blended up with one added thing to it. YouTube is a funny thing. As a matter of fact, all forms of content creation are just funny things. One where it always seems like no matter what, you're constantly losing compared to those around you, who also feel they're constantly losing to those around them. It's that constant fight that basically turns into a free-for-all, with all of us fighting to obtain that golden egg of content creation, our spot in the algorithm. YouTube for the most part is just a revolving door of relevancy, constantly wanting that next big thing. And in the LEGO community, that revolving door of relevancy is being first on the platform to review a set. While I do have my criticisms for set reviews for the most part, I would be a Scrooge to be denying their importance in the scene. It's always meant to give the potential buyer a better look in hand at a set where the official product images for a set just couldn't do it for most. Companies want you to see their product in the best light, sometimes being disingenuous how the final product may end up looking like. So having someone else buy it and give their thoughts online in an unbiased manner is very important, and many want to be first to do so. The first to show the community what the set looks like in hand and not via the lenses of the LEGO group, because it means that everyone will flock over to their channel and watch. Not to say that it's the sole contributing factor in all of this, but with how YouTube works and everyone now more than ever wanting to be a YouTuber all of a sudden, it'd be hard not to mention it, as it has people left and right throw common sense out the window once they find out how to acquire a set early. Whether it's from a random Walmart manager backdooring it, stealing it off a pallet, or some local mom and pop shop selling it early by mistake. The financial fear of buying an entire wave is basically non-existent, as it can be shoved off as an investment. If the videos do well, then they can easily make back their money. The race to be first can very quickly turn to one blinded by fear. No one envisions themselves as the second person to do something. Everyone wants to be the first person to do something. And with how YouTube works, no one wants to be second, even if it's something you don't actually give a shit about in the first place. With how quickly things go in and out on the algorithm, content creators fear by the time their videos are finally out that the platform would have moved on already. And nobody wants to play catch up with the algorithm. And that game of catch up can really extend for buying LEGO as a whole. People for the most part are usually attracted to the new item, the brand new thing. Once it's been out for about a week, people begin to look over the horizon for another thing. For a vocal minority, this is of course the case, but it's also important to see that not everyone thinks this way. As you see, the silent majority just wait until the sets they're looking for either becomes available or until it becomes affordable. For many people, they just want to buy the set as early as possible. They want to buy the set then and there so it's finally out the way and money can be saved for the next set, not wanting to fall behind. But for others, they don't mind the wait. They don't mind playing the psychological game of catch up. As to them, they are fixated on getting the set they really want, and that's it. The fear of missing out can affect us in a multitude of ways. While yes, I did look at this from very specific lenses, the fear of missing out affects everyone in their own specific way. Just like the title of this segment says, it's everyone's rabbit hole, and they just simply fall into it, for all sorts of reasons, and experience it in all sorts of ways. Whether it's because you really cared for it, or you were peer pressured into caring. But with everything someone's into, comes a ticking time bomb of relevancy. As the passage of time moves onward, so does our interests. Value is a subjective thing. We all see value in something where others may not. Could it be because it brings memories from a time long past, or could it be the potential monetary value that it can offer? Could it be the cast of minifigs it includes, or could it be what a set offers as a whole? Regardless of what your perception of value is, at the end of the day, it's all still a valid way of thinking. It's all still a valid way of thought, regardless of what others tell you. People have a very diverse way of seeing value in things, but when it comes to sets themselves, people tend to see value in sets in 3 different ways. Those who put value in the minifigures, not really caring about the build or anything, since to them the only thing that's worthwhile are the characters themselves to add to their collection. Those who put value in the builds, see the kits for what they offer with the assortment of pieces that they can use to further their own mocks or the endless possibilities of alternate builds, or just simply appreciating the design the LEGO designer made. And those who put value into the set as a whole, see it not for what it comes with, but what it can provide to you, the buyer. The value being the experience it can provide to you, whether it be the building, playability, or displayability of the set. While I myself tend to care more about the builds and what a set can offer as a whole, it would be stupid if I didn't acknowledge the absolute love for these little guys. The LEGO brick is only as famous as its minifigure. These little guys are the finishing touches that make a great build and amazing set. Over the years, the love of these guys continue to grow more and more as LEGO continues to offer amazing minifigures from both their licensed and original lines. To the point that minifigures have now become a big make or break deal for many when considering to buy LEGO sets nowadays. As to a growing amount of people in the community, a set is only amazing as its minifigure lineup, and that perception of value can only be shown in people who literally only buy sets just for the minifigures. Do these people play with their minifigures? Display them? Use them for mocks? Never in your wildest dreams. And I can't really say anything about that since I do the exact same thing. Anytime I get a set, I usually just chuck the minifig into this bin, never to be seen again. Listen, I love minifigs, I think they're neat, but my appreciation for them is a recent thing, and as I look to others around me, I see their love for these little guys have grown into an obsession, an unhealthy one at that. An unhealthy obsession with something is unhealthy. Who would have guessed? Are you glad you waited 4 months for this level of writing? Absolute cinema, I tell you. Who am I even talking to? Is anyone still here? If you combine an unhealthy obsession with a plastic collectible, it does a say and dance that evolves into a bad financial decision, making people see a $50 set as a questionable purchase, but seeing one minifigure at $100 be a bargain. Does common sense ever come into the line of thought? Of course not. Because if it's something they put value in, then that alone can go on to justify the purchase. Are there any outside influence affecting your purchase? Well, for the most part, I would like to believe there isn't, but at the same time, a lot of it, half the time, is outside influence, I'm not going to lie. I myself don't really have much value for these little guys, or well, the same value as most would. People like the feeling of collecting, others people like the feeling of rarity. And LEGO, knowing this information, likes to lean into these desires and profit off these feelings with their CMF line, and putting fan-beloved characters in high-priced sets because they know people don't care about the retail price if it's a character they really want, which means they're still going to buy it. And for myself, I just don't care. You see, for just about my entire life, I loved LEGO. There wasn't a time when I didn't like LEGO. If I were to get a present growing up, the only real options I would have, no matter how old I got, was either that year's new video game or a brand new LEGO set. But it was never just for the minifigs, it was always for the pieces for the builds. I always loved the feeling of building something out of random assortment of pieces. The minifigs were always just an afterthought in my head. And with the limited opportunity to get LEGO growing up, I always just saw it as an opportunity to be creative. So I would always just go online to see what set I can build using my own parts. Now, I could have been smart and just looked up the instructions online, but being the goober I was, or am, I just stared at the box. Yes, I just stared at the box art and tried to replicate it like that. I'm a genius, I know. That's how it was for me. In a time when we couldn't afford a set on a random Tuesday, it was up to me to just build it out of my own collection. The minifigs were never a priority to me. They were just there to be cool and interact with whatever I built, but were never necessary in my mind to have, which is why I don't really have any of my childhood minifigures anymore. They were just whatever to my young eyes. Stuff that I would grow up to horribly regret, I'm not gonna lie. Of course, I say that now after seeing the absolute state that is the LEGO aftermarket, but it was true for me back then. It was just to elevate my mocks on a whole other level, or just to give away to people who I didn't really like in school, just to shut them up. Yes, I'm stupid, I know. And yet the moment when it finally clicked in my brain that I do want a cool character I saw on the screen as a small marketable plushie, the thought of getting a minifig still never crossed my mind. Because Hasbro at the time had just revealed their plans on their new 6-inch line of detailed action figures, the Black Series. It had everything I wanted at the time, a sense of collectability, clone troopers. That was it. And so I hopped on that hype train until it eventually crashed in a fiery mess almost a decade later. So because of my sense of value in something changing throughout the years, it caused me to miss out on LEGO Star Wars sets from 2014 to 2021. Sad, I know, but I still got black hair Kanan, so that's cool, I guess, right? But every year, I still followed the scene and watched reviews to see if there was something I can build with my own collection. But all of that stopped once I found a new sense of value for the minifig. I was growing tired of the Black Series line, not just because of Hasbro's mishandling with the line, that could honestly be a video on its own, I'm not going to lie, but rather because it was just action figures. That was it. The vintage collection rose from the dead and got all the vehicles and playsets a fan can hope for. And the Black Series got jack shit besides a couple of speeders. So with the void that is my desire to waste money growing by the day, I just went back to LEGO because to me it was just the better option at the time. The combination of builds and minifigures is what gives value to buying LEGO in my eyes. And my newfound appreciation for the little guy caused me to go down the spiral that was getting back into the world of LEGO, and even buying minifigs by themselves on the secondhand market. Of course, it was still shit that I personally wanted because it'd be like that sometimes, but it also eventually drove me down the rabbit hole that is the custom community again. A scene that I personally thought died back in 2012, but to my surprise, it's been very much alive. I mean shit, I made a whole hour-long video about the whole scene. More and more people are starting to really get into customs. Because of the most part, it offers something that a person thinks is lacking in the official LEGO releases. And so in recent times, there's been a big explosion of those coming into the scene to buy and make their own customs, trying to offer something to someone. But from my observation of lurking around Discord groups for a couple of drops, there's a genuine feeling of FOMO in these groups. Since the production of custom minifigures are done at a scale nowhere near close to that of the LEGO company, custom minifigs are done and sold in small batches, usually due to resource limitations but done to ensure what's made is actually sold. The smaller the batch, the higher the likelihood that nothing's left over and doesn't sell. So because of people wanting their stock to be sold out, that low quantity of stock starts to create an artificial feeling of scarcity, whether it be done intentionally or by circumstance. So because everyone knowing how limited things can be, and the likelihood of a restock happening being next to nothing, there's a race caused by genuine fear of missing out to get these custom minifigures. And where there's people who want an item, there's always people who's willing to help them out at an additional cost.
By the way, in accordance with the laws of supply and demand, the new list price on each figure just doubled.
That's right, reselling within a small niche within an already small niche. And people still end up buying, and it's kind of funny. But it's what people choose to put value into. People like customs because it offers characters and designs that LEGO have not done, whether it be caused by age demographics or licensing issues. Custom manufacturers have stepped up and done what LEGO can't do because they aren't tied down to any legal obligations. I mean, they still are, but just like any good bootleg, they dance around the issue, no matter how close they get. So because of this, people tend to justify the asking price for these custom minifigs. Do I find it funny that people harp over the official LEGO pricing, but gladly will turn around and spend upwards to $100 for a single minifig? Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's kinda funny when I see that happen, but I understand. If it's something they like and they find value in, then let them spend the money because to them, these characters are worth it. And the experience of trying to get one mimicking getting a PS5 back in 2020 could also contribute to that sense of value. The rarity of something artificial or not is a contributing factor, but rarity isn't really entirely defined by the quantity of something. Rarity could be seen in different ways. It could be something like the perfect storm that can lead to something being created in the first place. If things didn't line up just right at the right moment in time, then there's a very real reality out there where these products were never made at all. With LEGO's vast back catalog of themes over the years, we have seen countless of themes, both licensed and original, come and gone. Themes that were made out of desperation for the brand trying to dig themselves out of financial ruin. Themes that are made to explore new territory and get a new audience to the scene. But sometimes themes that are clear moneymakers for the brand are first conceived by the board of directors as a brand risk, as it stands against what the LEGO company stood for. Creating a new theme is a very risky financial adventure. So much money and time put into the development of something that isn't even guaranteed to succeed. Sometimes it's a runaway success. Other times it struggles to gain any traction but ultimately leaves this earth with a cult following years later. And other times it trips at the starting line, banished to the land of bad YouTube top 10 lists. It's a gamble making a new theme. But the success of a line isn't just determined by the effort the LEGO company puts into the production of it. The success of a line is also determined by those interested in buying the product on store shelves. For the most part, people don't like change. People like to stick with what works and what's exciting. Companies don't want what could make them money, but what will make them money. Nowadays, what seems to be working are licensed themes, as for the most part they always seem to get their 15 minutes of fame rather than the original lines LEGO are making. and the reason why is because these IPs have already proven themselves as being worth something. There is a reason why something like Fortnite is going to be a big automatic success, while something like Hidden Side struggled and ultimately became a financial flop, both being new themes that are venturing out and trying to tap into a brand new market for the LEGO brand, introducing brand new molds and elements that are going to be very useful for mock builders and custom manufacturers moving forward. Both came with a bus, but one is very clearly going to outperform the other. Fortnite is old. It's been out for almost a decade. People who originally played it back in the day, who were in their early to mid teenage years, are now in their early to mid 20s, and look back on their time playing the game all those years ago very fondly. People tend to like stuff from their past. What a surprise. Is it because of nostalgia? Or is it because the new lines are just not cutting it for people? It's kind of a mashup of these two ideas. LEGO Fortnite isn't going to succeed because of the variety that's on offer with their new elements and brand new building techniques. No, it's going to succeed because it's fucking Fortnite. It's running off brand recognition alone for majority of its sales. People see the name and already associate memories with it, which entices them to buy. For all intent and purposes, Hidden Side is simply the better line. It had better variety in sets and minifigures on offer even at its release. But it didn't do well because it was new. It was the lack of the consumer caring for the product that ultimately killed it off. Destined to have a cult following in the next 10 years thanks to kids who grew up buying the sets growing older and having a voice online to share their passion for the theme. And funny enough, that right there is what really happens when we buy older sets. If you were fortunate enough to buy LEGO growing up, then you would always remember the vast variety of themes that LEGO would have on store shelves all at once. We hold these themes and sets dearly to us because of what they represent. A relic of the times when the only problem you really had was whether you wanted regular nuggets or dino nuggies. A time when we actually would play with our sets and not just build them once, put them on shelves, and never think about them ever again. These themes matter so much to us because it's what we grew up with. It's what helped us be creative. It's what made our childhoods. That's our perception of value. We start to question why LEGO continues to release themes that just don't do well compared to what LEGO did back in the day. That's just a narrow way of looking at it. When talking about themes we like, people tend to forget that at the time of their release, these themes were the new. They were the untested waters. They were all made in the name of LEGO trying to expand to new demographics, and all being sold to a market that ultimately just didn't care for LEGO's attempt at being new. All except for those kids who would go on to buy these sets because they thought they were the coolest shit ever. We get so caught up with the thought of what will or won't do well that we tend to forget to ask ourselves why the things we liked in the past even do so well to begin with. Pretty much all the LEGO lines people my age range liked growing up only really had a shelf life ranging from anything to 1 to 3 years. Some of them will go on to have 3 waves, with people's interest at the time continuing to fizzle out naturally, while others would go on to be a one-off set to never be mentioned ever again by the LEGO group and be remembered by like 5 people including me. Childhood nostalgia is a bitch. I forgot where I heard it, but I remember coming across a video that said there's no price for childhood nostalgia, and yeah, that's very much true. People would always go on to say why don't they just continue old themes and relaunch them, but that doesn't really work the way you think it would. For starters, the LEGO company is always cycling through new ideas and themes, seeing what sticks and what doesn't, going off by their metric with the 3-wave rule. If a theme starts to dip in sales by its 3rd wave, then the theme is shelved and a brand new one starts to be developed to take its place. But if a theme continues to grow with every new release, then that's a sign for the LEGO group to keep supporting it until interest in the line eventually, and I can't emphasize this next part enough, naturally dies off. Bionicle is a very memorable line for many. It's not only the line that had so much more to offer than was perceived on face value, with its numerous movies and books that expanded on the mythos of the world that grabbed the attention of any kid in the early 2000s, but it's also the line that got LEGO out of financial hardship. LEGO's success in the 21st century is due in part to the popularity of the Bionicle line, but just like everything else, it ran its course, until eventually dying a peaceful death in 2008. But people began to ask the LEGO company to relaunch the theme, ultimately rejecting the new line that came to replace it, Hero Factory, on the sole basis that it wasn't Bionicle. And it wasn't long until LEGO decided to do what the fans wanted and relaunch the line. But there came a problem. Nobody was buying the sets. Bionicle 2015 came and just as quickly died off as it failed to hit sales projections. It got hit by a fucking truck.
Ouch.
What's the good that comes from listening to the fans that petition for a product to be relaunched and released if those same fans aren't even going out to buy the sets themselves? People aren't interested in the new. People are interested in what got them there to begin with, the original sets. Remakes will never beat the feeling of owning the one that started it all. When I say there's no price to nostalgia, I do really mean it. It doesn't matter if it's used or new, as things get older, the price for stuff continues to grow, more than its retail value. But the value of owning something from the past outweighs the financial value, making a price that seems ludicrous to anyone else be completely reasonable to yourself if you really want it that badly. And this cycle just continues to go on, so much so that it causes a sense of FOMO that pressures people into buying these sets at their current market value, because the rationale at the time being, if you're not going to pull the trigger, someone else will come right on by and do it themselves. And people usually finding themselves finally in a position to buying these sets their kid self always wanted completely justifies the purchase, since the fear of missing out on the set a second time clouds their judgment. I myself, in recent times, now that I have adult money,
$7?
have not really been interested in buying LEGO's current offering. They're just too expensive, but like, that's not the point right now. But when I do, it's usually just one aspect to a set. For example, I only bought the E-Wing. That was it. What I have been getting into is buying stuff that I always wanted back in the day, but never could. So for my birthday, the only thing I bought for myself wasn't a UCS Venator, or a new Glub Shitto, but was actually this. Set 7473, Street Sprinter vs Mutant Lizard. It's not the coolest set in the world, I know, but it's from a theme that I just never got as a kid growing up, because I made the financial decision of picking 500 battle packs instead that year. But now that I'm older, with no 500 battle packs to show for, I ended up getting it because it's cool to me. I put value in this line as one of LEGO's first attempt at a standalone dinosaur sub-theme. And it's not like I only say this because I'm now the very old and senile age of 22. No, I just like dinosaurs. So like I said earlier, I've never been one to try and collect an entire wave. I just think for the most part it's unnecessary, especially for themes like Star Wars when there's always something else coming out in like 3 months time. So in 2014, I stopped buying LEGO for Black Series, blah blah blah, you already know why. But in 2014, rumors started to spread about the 4th Jurassic Park film, Jurassic World, was going to receive a wave of LEGO sets. I was unbelievably excited. Not only was I seeing some of my favorite things join forces like a fucking Gundam, but it was a movie license. For the most part, when it comes to any intellectual property, LEGO usually likes to go all out on them. And the reason why is because they're usually one-offs, made only to promote the project. So these licensed sets are fewer in numbers and by definition become rare to own, especially once the promotional window for the movie closes, meaning that these sets have a shorter shelf life than normal. So because of all these buzzwords, I made it my goal to try and buy the entire wave, even trying to hunt down the Walmart exclusive set. And after all was said and done, the only thing I was missing was the Indominus. The FOMO I had for these sets was something I don't think I've ever had for any set after these. Even when Fallen Kingdom and Dominion came out, I didn't even bother picking up a single set from them. After this, there was never a sense of urgency with the Jurassic Park IP, as it had several sets released over the years since. But that first wave, that uniqueness of what was thought as a one-time deal with Universal and LEGO, had my hype for the wave be unreasonably high, even trumping the hype I used to have for LEGO Star Wars. Like I said, most of that was due part because it was perceived to be a one-off that I put value into. There will always be a place for themes such as City, Ninjago, and Star Wars. These sub-themes have gone on to be massive successes for the LEGO brand, showing off that they can successfully pull off new ideas and show off the marketing power of licensed IPs. Themes like these are always in the topic of conversation, as they never really take a break. There's always going to be a new set in a couple of months' time. There's never a worry that these won't do well in sales, as they can stand on name recognition alone. They have cultivated a dedicated fan base that will eat up anything that is thrown out there. But when sales do drop, when the sub-theme does feel a hiccup, improvement does happen. A theme that may have stayed stagnant over the years gets a breath of fresh air, as the designers start to experiment what else they can do with it. And these efforts usually are seen and appreciated by the greater LEGO community. Usually. But it all really depends on what most deem as improvement, as it's impossible to please everyone. With every action, you are never going to make everyone universally happy. Regardless of whether you have the best interest in mind, you will always end up disappointing someone somewhere along the line. It's just unavoidable. We all put value into something. We all want something. But when we do get it, we tend to not be satisfied with what our offering is. But as much as I keep telling you this, it's now that time in all my LEGO videos where I tell you to take the previous, I don't know how many minutes long, throw it out, and think for yourself. I don't really care what you're into at the end of the day. I'm not here to tell you how to spend your money, nor tell you why you should like one thing over the other. I just do not care. It's your money. I just care if you're buying it for your own amusement or for the validation of others. Buying Lego in today's world sucks. What a hot take. If you're an overthinker like me, then you would know there is so much that goes into buying a simple Lego set. From the high price tags to the declining quality, to the build that's on offer, and to the minifigs on display. There's a lot of factors that one thinks about when buying a Lego set, and other forms of collectibles, with each branching path getting more convoluted than the last, with all these paths eventually leading down to the same path called buyer's remorse. The hard part talking about FOMO is that it stems from our own sense of value in a product. What we may put on a pedestal, another person can easily just pass it off as being whatever, which makes the topic very difficult to write about, as I can easily write this from my own perspective and call it a day. But that would be doing a disservice to the topic as a whole, as it's not just about me. Interests shift and evolve over time. What you may like right now, you may be looking differently in about a month's time. Could it just be you getting tired of the product, or are you just simply getting out of it in favor for something else? Both responses are completely valid in their own way. The fear of missing out on a product is something everyone has experienced in their life, whether it be for electronics, video games, or in this video's case, Lego products. The novelty of getting something new before anyone else is a cool thing to experience, but it's nothing more than a quick high. The fear of missing out on a product starts to become silly from the outside looking in once you have the knowledge that these products will be restocked, making the initial rush to go get them be funny to those who wouldn't understand. But for people in the scene, that initial rush to go get the sets is justified, because although yes, eventually the products will be back on shelves, but no one really knows just how long that may take. There's a very real fear of never knowing when's the next time you'll be able to buy the set. Shit, the set may just never restock after its first initial run. And that's enough justification to buy the set the moment you see it out in the wild or live on the website. But are you really doing it for yourself? Are you really buying the set for your own excitement, or do you just simply want the bragging rights over your friends and other people online? FOMO can do a lot of things to the mind. It can make people justify outrageous prices on stuff because it's the thing they really want. It can make people pick one thing over another simply because they don't want to feel left out. It makes us do a lot of dumb shit. And I'm here to tell you that it's all perfectly okay. Because if it's something we care about, then hey, where's the harm in that?